Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Paranormal Reveal. My name is Greg Bakken, and this is Christy.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight, Christy?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So tonight we are going to be talking with Char Savoy. We're going to be talking about an investigation from start to finish that she experienced, and this is the purpose of the show. Christy, why don't you go ahead and explain basically what we're going to be doing every month?
Yeah. So once a month, Greg and I are looking for people who, through just one investigation, had a bunch of stuff happen. So whether you have photos or videos or EVPs, we want to be able to share that investigation. So it's not a multiple. So just like Shar tonight, this is just one time that she went to Villisca and one experience. Well, many experiences she had in that one night. So we're looking for other people who want to do that. So if you like the show and you want to join in or you want a day to do this, let us know and we'd love to have you on.
Absolutely. And that is very much what we want to do. We want to be able to bring a lot of different experiences for people to show what one night in an investigation looks like. And this is going to be one that I don't like to guarantee things to people, but what I will say is that this is going to be something that you probably have uh, never have experienced or heard of before. And this is why we wanted to start with it. I've known Shar for many years. We work together on a lot of stuff. I've heard some of this uh, evidence before, some of these moments before. Please just make sure that you listen through everything, because this is going to be quite the extraordinary experience. And like I said, I'm not trying to oversell something, but this is clearly a unique experience. I'd like to introduce Char Savoy tonight with us, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation. Char, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. It's good to see you.
Good to see
Yeah,
you.
you too.
So, Char, we talked a little bit before we started the program, and basically are just trying to figure out like the best way to get into this. And so, why don't we start with just your background, if you wouldn't mind telling everybody a little bit about who you are and all the wonderful things that you're doing.
Okay. Well, I started off as a paranormal investigator, and that's through that kind of figured out that I could tap into certain things, and then ended up working in a haunted location, which then led me to meet a bunch of psychics, mediums, healers, and so forth, which then helped me develop my gifts. And so now I am a healer and a medium, a paranormal investigator, and I do psychic readings. So I have my own thing that I'm doing now that kind of came out of all of this. So it's kind of interesting how it I'll go from this side to the other side.
How long have you been investigating? Because if anyone who noted at the beginning of our program, the date of the investigation was August 18th, 2011, if I have that correct.
Mm-hmm.
How long had you been investigating prior to that?
5 months.
So not long. So you start with the biggie of everything. It's kind of the whole, literally the go big or go home, right?
Yeah, this was kind of the second go big or go home. I actually grew up really terrified of all of this, and I think it was because I was a medium and didn't know that, and there was nobody that
Right.
really understood it to talk to me about it. And so people just told me I had a really active imagination. So in December, it was like October of the year before, I had an opportunity to go to the Stanley Hotel, and I booked myself on their overnight investigation. And that kind of started opening my eyes up a little bit more. And then friends were like, hey, I'm into this. And then that's how we started forming a team and really researching it. How do you do it? What do we do? All this other stuff. And then we, in March, I think, was our first investigation. And then this was in August. So we had done like maybe 3 or 4 investigations before we had gotten to Villisca.
What was it that made you decide to go to Villisca? Where did you hear about Villisca?
At the Stanley. The tour guide talked about it. I had asked her, I said, well, where are some really cool places that you had been? Because obviously I was new to this and I had no idea where to go for anything other than what I'd seen on TV. And at that time, there was very relative, like 1 or 2 shows that you could watch to figure out where to go. And so she had said the absolute worst place she had gone to was Villisca. And I was like,
And so you
oh,
decided that's then where you all need to go after
That's
hearing
funny.
that.
heck.
Actually, you know what, Char? My very first place I ever investigated was Villisca as well. I didn't even
Yeah.
think that till just now. That's funny.
Well, I think I came home and I researched, and actually I couldn't even remember the name of it, but I started researching it and I found it and I read about it. I'm like, okay, that sounds really interesting. Sounds kind of intriguing. Sounds a little scary. I don't know, but at the same time, too, I was pretty naive. I was thinking, whatever, it's not that I thought nothing could happen because I was being fully aware of being protected and things like that, but I didn't think it was going to be what it ended up being, I think is what the thing was.
What did you think of when the person at the Stanley told you that it was one of the worst nights of their lives? What did you think about that at the time?
Um, I thought, oh, well, there's a part of me that kind of like, oh, maybe she's hyping it up. I don't know.
Sure.
You just wasn't taking it for a grain of salt. I thought there must have been some things, probably. She does this for a living, so obviously gauging it against what she does, this must mean something. But at the same time, I'm like, is she hyping it up? I don't know.
Right, right. Before we get into your investigation, would you be able
Mhm.
to give us a brief overview of what happened at Villisca that started everything from there?
Okay, so I believe it was June 12th or June 10th of 1912. There was a family, a mom and a dad, the Moores, and they had 4 children, and they were at a church for a children's program. They came home, and 2 friends of the daughter that they had decided to spend the night. So that makes 6 kids and 2 adults were in the house. And apparently, it's not super 100% clear, but apparently there was a murderer with some motive that was hiding in the attic, waited for everybody to fall asleep. And when they were asleep, he came out and he bludgeoned everybody, starting with the dad and then the mom and then the children, who were all upstairs just outside the attic. The mom is the only one that got the sharp end of the blade. Everybody else got the back side of the blade. So he literally beat them with the blade. Went downstairs. The timing is a little muddy too. He made something to eat, not really sure how long he was down there, but then heard some motion in the downstairs bedroom where the 2 neighbor girls had spent the night, and that's when they got their ending. I don't know how to say that really politely.
Right. And so who killed them?
They really don't know. They had some suspects. There was even a trial, and nobody got convicted. So it's been an unsolved murder since then. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of it could be this, it could be that. Why did it happen? Nobody really knows.
And excuse me, one of the things that people uh, don't really understand was that there is, at the time, there was no police in
Right.
Liska. They were only a peace officer.
Hmm.
So what happened then once people found out? Because who found out about the murder?
So the Moors, obviously back then, there was kind of farming, and so they would always be up early. And so the lady next door, Mrs. Peckham, was kind of like a surrogate grandmother. She was a
Yep.
little bit older lady, and that is the house that Johnny Hauser lives in now.
Yep.
She didn't see anybody stirring, which was super unusual. And it was really quiet. And with all these kids, normally you would hear somebody running around, go out, feed the chickens, whatever.
Hmm.
Nothing was happening. So she called the Moore's brother, I think it was believed Mr. Moore's brother, to come over, and he had a key. And so they went in shortly after. I mean, it'd been quite a while, and went in, and he found the 2 girls first,
Hmm.
and then came out and told her, he's like, oh, we need to call somebody. And then they found everybody, and he's like, everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And so then, unfortunately, the whole town traipsed through the whole entire house and muddied any evidence whatsoever. And I believe the Stillingers' mom or dad, I don't remember which one, was trying to get a hold of the Moores. And back then they had operators that would connect phones.
Yep.
And he got a hold of the operator, and he's like, I'm trying to reach the Moore house. And they're like, oh, we're sorry, everybody in there's dead. So that's how the Stillinger family found out their daughters were passed away.
That's
Um,
awful.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. The mom was
Right.
pregnant, and she actually ended up miscarrying
Oh my
shortly
goodness.
thereafter.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and I believe I don't remember who it was, but somebody, I believe it said that somebody had taken a piece of Mr. Moore's skull and kept it as a trophy. And so it was just tragic from start to end. I mean, just,
Like, who would even think to do that? Let me just grab a piece of this skull really quick. No thanks.
I don't know.
So
But
weird.
yeah, so any evidence, any hopeful signs of finding anything, just, I mean, and they really didn't have a lot of evidential things back then
Hmm.
as far as like we do now when you go to like get DNA and things like that. So anything that would have been in there was just muddied and not worth anything.
One of the things, and maybe someday, what I'd love to be able to do as a tangent is to get Johnny on here because his
Mhm.
story about living next door is pretty extraordinary, also. But one of the things that surprised me when I went to Villisca was the layout of the upstairs, because when people say that the killer was supposedly waiting in the attic, what does that mean, Shar, in terms of the layout of the floor?
Oh my God, it's so small. I mean, the entrance to the attic is literally maybe 2, maybe 3 feet from the end of the bed from the parents. I
Right.
mean, this killer literally was within 10 feet, 10, 15 feet of everybody in the upstairs if he was sitting in that attic. I mean, that it just makes me cringe.
And for us in the Midwest, mainly like Minnesota, where we are right now, all of us are right now, an attic means one more floor generally above the rest of the house. So when I
Mhm.
originally had heard it myself, that was like, okay, that's up there. So I mean, boy, that's pretty bad. But while these, you know, children and these parents were getting ready for bed, there's supposedly there's somebody waiting for them the entire night.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and it literally is 2 floors, the main floor and the top floor. So that and the attic is
Yep.
just a space. It's not an
Yep.
extra add-on up above. It's just this extra space. And what it was back then, if it was an attic, if it was a storage, I don't know what
It
it
could be
was.
an extra room. I mean, when you
Oh,
see it, it could really be like an
it
extra
could.
Totally.
room.
Totally.
It's bigger than the 2 bedrooms
Mhm.
actually. But there also is some thought that in between the attic when you go into the first door and the second door, there's like a space of like maybe 2 to 3 feet. And apparently, what I had heard this, and I don't quote me 100% on this, but I had heard that there was a pot where you could go to the bathroom in that little space. So imagine kids trying to get ready for bed. If they have to go to the bathroom instead of going out to the outhouse, they would use this pan in that space. And here's this person right on the other side of the wall.
Oh my God. So moving things along, and because we could talk for hours,
Hmm.
hours about just this part of it, because a lot of people have seen a lot of different things. A lot of the suspects play a big part throughout it. There's a lot of theories about who actually did it, the motives behind it. That's not what this is about, though. What this is about is your experience on August 18th, 2011. So why don't we start with we know that you had made the decision after listening to the person at the Stanley Hotel. Who did you bring with you, and what was it? I mean, what was the mood like getting down to Iowa? And I'm gonna do my best to be quiet during this because you and I have talked many times about our experiences at this location, and I can just see that that a lot of that is it kind of reminiscent of my own thing. But I'm going to keep quiet
Hmm.
because tonight is your story, and I know that other people have gone to this location with you who are watching, like Jenny. And Jenny, rest assured, at some point we're gonna, definitely want to hear your what your experience is on it. Tonight we're gonna really just kind of focus on Char's personal experience on it, and then we're gonna get to Jenny at some point as well, because everyone has this unique, wonderful experience of this. Well, wonderful is probably the worst word you could possibly use, right? I mean,
I heard she wants to do it all over again the
she's
same
going
way.
to in October.
Yeah,
Mm.
Um,
I'll come break the windows for you
Oh no,
just to make it happen again.
so
no.
what was the vibe like going down there? And who went with you?
Okay, so we had a newly formed team. So it was the team that went down there. So there was quite a few people in there, and then Jenny, who I know is watching. I don't know if anybody else on the team is probably watching right now because we've kind of all gone our separate ways. We haven't been a team for quite a while. So, but one other person that was on the team was my daughter. So, which is, she was very close in age to Jenny. So, my daughter, Nikki. So, we went down. There was 8 of us. That's kind of significant. There was 8 of us, and there was 8 of them.
Right.
So, which that didn't kick into us as we went down there. So we went down there. We were kind of excited, but nervous. You know, we're the unknown. We knew it was going to be weird. It might be creepy. We really hadn't seen a lot of shows on it yet, so we really didn't have a lot of experiences to go on. But we knew that everybody was going, so we had to go. So we were excited. We were kind of nervous. We were, you know, just like you would be any other time going to an investigation. But I think the little thought of it being the Villisca Axe Murder House, we were just slightly, a little bit of that nerve more than the excitement, I think.
Now this is your first time, apart from the Stanley, going to a famous location, right?
No, we had gone to 2 other ones before this.
So you've done a lot, actually. Never mind then.
Well, to put it into perspective, we went to the Palmer House, and now we're
Yep.
going to Villisca. It couldn't be any more than night and day.
Right, exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So we went down with the thought of like, you know, we're gonna spend the night. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have a good time. We're talking about, you know, like who's gonna pair off with who. How should we do it? You know, so there's just a lot of talk of like, what are we gonna do when we get there?
Logistics and whatnot, right?
Right. Yeah. And then just being silly and, you know, whatever. And I honestly, I don't think any of us really could even come close to what was going to happen. Like it was the farthest from our minds. So there was nothing of that fear factor kicking in yet.
And I just want to throw in real fast for those who are watching us tonight. First of all, thank you. Please share this live stream. But also, if you have questions for Shar, please put them in the comments, and we will put them up there. Once again, I mean, I shouldn't have to say this, and I know I won't need to, but as long as they're respectful and whatnot. But this is a collaborative conversation about her experience. So you're getting yourself down there. When you get to the location, I mean, at that point, you weren't thinking in terms of mediumship for yourself. But
no.
But what was your first feeling of even being around the house?
Well, okay, so first of all, I hadn't at that point realized that I was a medium. So none of that was even on my scope at all. But we were to meet Johnny at the museum, which is no longer operating. So we met him at the museum and we paid for it all. We did everything. He gave us a tour of the museum, which honestly, that museum was a little haunted too. So, and he's like, okay, well, you know, it's kind of cloudy. It might rain. So
this is what we call foreboding, folks.
You know, if I hear 30% chance of rain every time I go, forget it. So anyways, so we toured the whole thing. We had at the time, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. The guy that owned it.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Wore
the suspender, the overhauls.
The overhauls, yes.
Oh my god,
right.
I'm
oh my
so
gosh.
Sorry.
Let me see if I can find that real fast. But yes, absolutely. Who had passed away a number of years ago now. Who ran the museum also.
I'm
Sorry.
so blank on his name.
I never knew him. I was the first time I went there, he had already passed away, so I don't.
Same here. So we never got to meet him either.
Okay. Okay.
Anyways,
Darwin.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
Darwin.
You. Thank you.
So,
Annie.
So basically, we met there, and Darwin had this massive collection of stuff. So it was kind of fascinating, kind of creepy at the same time. But then Johnny was like, you know, it might rain. Do you guys want to go see the cemetery first? Because that's kind of cool. If you want to look at that, I can show you everything. And we're like, yeah, great. So I think at the point that we got to the cemetery was when the reality kicked in a little bit. Seeing the graves,
right?
Seeing, the grave for the Moore family is just it's just this huge stone and this long headstone with all their
Absolutely.
names on it. And it
Yep.
just, your brain all of a sudden goes into reality mode of like, oh my God, like this is reality, these people right here. And then the Stillingers just being shortly like 2 rows over. And so it really started kind of kicking in at that point that, wow, this is, the emotions were kicking in, all of that. And then we got to the house. We followed Johnny back to the house, and the cemetery is not that far away. I mean, I don't know how far, but it's a quarter mile maybe. It's not really that far.
Mm-hmm.
So we get back to the house, and Johnny kind of gives us the layout of the barn and everything, kind of gives us the rules, all that other stuff. And he's like, okay, well, let's go in the house. And we're like, okay, so we go in the house. And I think he had told us, like prior to going in, that he had just done a reenactment on the anniversary in June. This is now July. And this is the first time that he's been back in the house since then. And we're like, oh, okay. And we didn't hear anything about really all the details of that, so to speak. So then he takes us in there, gives us a whirlwind tour, and you can see him just like physically nervous about being in there.
He didn't want to be in there, huh?
He didn't want to be in there, and he really kind of like was fidgety, and he said, I'm sorry, it's my first time back in here, it just feels a little weird, blah 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 blah. And so he gives us the tour and he bolts. He's gone. And I'm kind of like, this dude lives next door, and he just bolted out of this house. And at the same time, the feeling in that house was so heavy. It was so thick and so heavy that I automatically had anxiety just being in it. Because I'm like, this feels really heavy. Like, I don't know what this is, but this is intense. I don't like it. This is not okay. That was all I was thinking. This is not okay.
So, so then he leaves.
Yeah.
And you all are in there. I mean, how do you, Jenny said in the comments that you're all kind of newbies, and you kind of put that down there too. Where did you begin to decide? How did you decide to even the plan of attack, for lack of a better term, for the investigation?
Well, we decided that the parlor area was going to be the best way to set up. So we get out to the car. We're running back and forth, carrying in table, computer.
Any rain yet? Any rain
Not
yet?
yet. Nothing yet. But we could see it getting cloudy.
Okay, so
we're like, well,
something is coming in. Some weather's coming in.
Yeah. So we thought, let's hurry. Let's get all this stuff in before it starts raining. The equipment and whatever, our sleeping bags, everything that we need. Let's get it in the house really fast. So we worked really fast to get everything in. With 8 of us, it didn't take very long. I mean, maybe 10 minutes, we got everything in, started setting up, set up the DVR with the monitor, started getting out cameras, started spreading stuff out, figure out where we're going to put everything.
Yeah.
And, so it was just kind of really super fast, get everything up really fast before it starts raining. And that's what our plan was. I think maybe 20 minutes tops, 25 minutes, we had stuff in place. It wasn't turned on and ready to go, but we had everything in place. So we went fast.
Right. So and if I'm jumping ahead, tell me this. But I mean, there's like, for example, footage of you all trying to set up a camera and stuff starts happening. And now, am I jumping ahead on you?
Nope. So this is in the process of setting everything up. And they said, we need somebody to go upstairs and set up a camera in the kids' room. And that was hooked to the DVR. And then Jenny actually had her full spectrum camera with a tripod. And so we went up and set up the kids' camera. And then we went into the attic, and we decided that's where the full spectrum camera was going to go. And downstairs was intense. But the minute I got upstairs, I just, like, my stomach right now is just flipping, just talking about that feeling.
Just talk about, and so that's interesting that you said that downstairs was intense. What does that mean, though? What is that about then?
It's just thick. I mean, the air felt really thick. It felt heavy. It felt intense. It felt like somebody was like right on you, like behind
They're really
you,
watching you. They're on you.
Did it give you a lot of anxiety?
Yeah. And I think that probably, even not knowing it at that point, but being a medium and an empath, I think I was on overload, and I didn't realize that I was picking up even more so than maybe somebody else in the group was. But I felt just completely uneasy. And going upstairs, I was like, I have a job to do, but I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
So did you set up the cameras based on like what you were feeling where it should be, or were you just kind of going by with what other people had said in the stories?
I think we were just trying to cover as much ground as possible, and I think I just knew I had to get up there and put a camera up there, so I set one right in the by the windows in the kids' room, and I wanted to go out down the hallway because I think I'd heard stories of the outside attic door shutting, and so we're like, well, if we get that, or if we get anybody walking in the hallway or movement, we can see all that. And then the cord would go up there. We only had 4 cameras that had cords, so we had to be really picky on where we put those. And then we wanted to get something in the attic, and that's when we did the freestanding full spectrum camera.
So we are now in the attic,
Mm-hmm.
and you're all setting up a camera, and we're going to play a clip. Now, what? Tell us, because the thing is that, first of all, I edited all the other clips to a certain degree, and some of them may be long, but there's a reason for it. This one I didn't really get to. So this clip's about 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are we going to hear here? Because we're not going to do the thing where people try to pick it up. We're going to tell them what happened here, because we're going to keep things moving. So what happens here, Shar?
Okay, so me and Jenny are actually trying to get into the attic with this camera. So we're fumbling all over the place. So you'll see the camera moving all over. You hear us talking about where to put it, what we want to do. And we decided to go all the way back to the very back of the attic where the 2 windows are, right up against the wall, and shoot out towards the door. So, shooting back out the way to get out. At that point in the attic, the floor was really soft and gave way. So you had to be really careful where you walked in there.
Absolutely.
So we were trying to get in there. We're trying to be really careful. You'll see us fumbling around trying to figure out what to do. And at one point there's a beam, and you see Jenny kind of go around the beam, and that's when she hits a soft spot, and you hear her like, whoa, don't walk there, watch out, or whatever she says. And shortly after that, right here in my ear where the wall is, I hear a man's voice go, Shar. And I say, what? And I felt the breath on my neck and on my ear. And at the point that I said, what? I mean, it's a natural response.
Yep.
I was like, why did you answer this? That was when my nerves just went poof, gone. And so you'll actually see I gave up with the camera. I tried to stay as calm as I could, and I let Jenny fix it. And you see me down by the door just fidgeting, wanting to get the heck out of there.
There's one other thing to that, though, isn't there? Someone else heard your name being said.
Jenny also heard it. So she heard it just as well. So she turns and goes, I heard your name.
Yep. Okay. So this is in the attic at the Villisca Axe Murder House. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, where am I going?
That was you.
Yeah.
We put it up against the wall or something?
I don't know. Where do you want it, Jenny? Or do you want it on that end facing this way?
We can do, yeah, let's do that and maybe. The door closes, we get on both cameras. Oh!
Would you?
You have to be really careful right here.
Okay,
Don't
where's?
step there. That floor is going to cave in.
What?
I heard your name. Is it good?
I can't tell what I'm looking at. I think I'm looking at you. I don't know. I can't tell what I'm looking at. Hurry, Jenny. Here, I'll stand over by the door so you can see me. Okay, you see me?
I'm moving over here.
See me?
Hold on. I'm moving it. Yeah, I'm trying to get the door in the way, but I don't know. See, the dumb poles aren't helping here.
You see me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good then.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm moving this little white thing. Okay. Don't. I don't like it in there.
Christopher, did you say my name? Did he say my name? Yes. Here's the water.
So one of the things that I pick up immediately, and I'm going to want Christy's reaction to this as well. First of all, you know, I'm going to be honest. I don't hear your name myself, but here's the thing: is that you say what you can. That's very clear, and others probably did hear your name. I just didn't. And normally, I try to clean up the audio a little bit for this, and I did for the rest of the clips. But you know, you hear Jenny. She's like, this is I heard your name. But when you said to Christopher, the way that you talked to him, did you say my name? And then he's just like, what? And the way that you reacted to that is just, I mean, that says it all to me right there. That says it all to me, the tone of the night at that point, right?
Yeah. And I asked him if he said it because he was the only gentleman with us. And he's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And one of the girls goes, I did. So, because it was a male voice that said my name, but one of the girls said, I did. I said your name, which I didn't hear her. I heard what was being said right next to me.
See, and I wonder too, like a lot of times maybe it's only meant for you to hear it, you know, and if you do hear it, then you go back and play it, you know, like you can replay that for yourself and you know people hear things differently. To me, sometimes EVPs are a lot like, you know, is the the dress gold and white or is it blue and black? It depends on what people are hearing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just think that people can hear it differently or pick up on it differently. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that people are hearing it, however their brain is perceiving it.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I personally agree with that too. Before we move on, a couple comments that come through that are not necessarily regarding your investigation, but I think that we just want to kind of just put them out there. Greg Koss had said, Johnny mentioned on my show that there were a series of killings like these across the Southwest U.S. and they were almost copycat because of lack of communication across the country. No one put it all together. I mean, that is a theory, though. I mean, we just don't have. I mean, it seems very plausible, but there isn't. It's not been proven.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they can't prove who did it, but it's like because I responded there to Greg. One of the people who was known for doing that was actually Jake Bird, who spent some time in the Squirrel Cage jail, which is along the same railroads. And for a while, I was kind of wondering, you know, it could have been him. They did, however, tell me that he would have been like 12 at the time. I'm not so sure that that completely rules him out, but it does make it less possible that it was Jake Bird. But he was actually at the Squirrel Cage before anybody even knew that he was murdering people.
Right.
He was in there for domestic violence. So, I mean, there were a few people who were basically riding those rails and just offing people.
Now, Jill also says that it's clearly audible for her and no one else, but that's not entirely true because Jenny heard it as well. But I do get your point, Jill, because Jill had said that it happens to her and everyone sees me react or even shout out. In another comment from Jill, she's also one to have said, I say what out loud a lot. And then Jeremy also says, did you convert the audio into a wavelength to see if there's something there? You know, like I said, because in Char, don't take this the wrong way. You don't have, I mean, you do have the ability though for that, but I mean, you haven't done it for that clip. And I had been doing it for the stuff that we're going to show tonight. I couldn't convert this clip. And this is actually one that Char and I use in our paranormal class that we do together. So it was just like, I quickly put it in. The other clips that you're going to get tonight, and there are 16 of them, you're going to see the wavelength, or at least be able to see the animation of the wavelength for a lot of this stuff. So moving things along, because we have a lot to go through.
Yeah.
You get through. I mean, that's just the start of it. At this point, when you heard your name and you're early on in the evening, what is your thought about where you're at this moment with your mind and everything?
I'm like, is it too late to drive home? I mean, because feeling the intensity and then having that happen, I'm like, dude, we're 20 minutes in. And as you can hear, it's starting to rain. So we just gotten everything and we're setting up. And so I was like, oh. And I'm like, I can't just go outside to get air because it's raining. I'm like, okay, hold it together. And you can see me standing by that door. I'm like, I want to get out. I want to get out. I want to get out.
Yeah.
And so I was just not, I was not okay, and I didn't tell anybody. And even when Jenny acknowledged I heard your name, I didn't even like acknowledge that she said anything. I was like, we're not talking about it. Like I just, nope, we're done.
Should have just
Like,
put you in the attic alone and left.
oh God.
We're going to shut this door and we're just going to see
Adios.
what happens. We'll come back at 9 a.m. Okay, so here we are. What happens next? Because we have some other clips that happened. Now, Catherine just asked, "Is this an overnight investigation?" And the answer is
Yes.
right. Now, this was meant. I mean, here's the thing: we know a lot of people. I've known people to go to Villisca and they investigate for a bit, and then they lay down in the beds and stuff, which you're not supposed to do.
Correctly.
But you, Jenny, and the rest of the team, you went there explicitly to do the whole 9 yards, right?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we get out of the attic, as you saw. I go around the corner, which is literally 4 feet, yelling down the stairs to get to somebody to answer me. And so at that point, somebody tells me that I need to fix the camera in the children's room. So I haven't even left upstairs yet. So now we go and we're going to go check the camera in the kids' room. And you'll see us walk by the attic door. And then that's when you're going to see, shortly after, you'll see a shadow.
Okay. So this is, now we're going to play the full clip, and then it's going to be towards the end. We're going to see it, but then we're also going to play the clip again where I zoomed in and shortened it, but we wanted to play the full thing so you could see the people walk through the doorway. Now, keep in mind, folks, this is in, correct me if I'm wrong, this is in the attic. It's looking out where then the parents' room would be, or roughly. It's a little diagonal.
Right.
But let's show this. Okay. Okay. Now there is a lot of there's people going, you may have missed it only because there is a clip a little long, but it's seen a lot. You could hear thunder, you can hear rain. Before we comment any further, let's play it again. But this is just an 8-second clip of it with the shadow going through the doorway. Okay, and this is zoomed also, so it's just focused on the doorway. I might play this a couple times. So here we go. This is the shadow going through the doorway in the attic at Villisca. I'm going to play it one more time. Okay, here we go. It's just in and out.
Well, and I actually think I don't know that it actually goes in the attic. I think it crosses the kids' room.
But that's what I mean, though. In and out, out of shot. Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify really quick. Like, I'm reading people's comments on my page. So if you see me responding or saying something in the chat and it doesn't make any sense, it's because the people on my page can't see any of that. So,
and obviously, Shar, this is something none of you see until you're back home. Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. And the reason why we keep talking about the weather, it plays a bit of a part of the story. So, Christy, any thoughts on anything you want to say on that?
on the shadow, I mean, I I just think it's kind of awesome that you even captured it. I am wondering if the storm itself probably just amped up some of the activity for you that night anyway. All that extra energy and um, things going on in there, having that shadow figure there just kind of, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
It's really
Yeah.
cool. It's really cool. So at that point, you're all doing what you're doing.
hmm
We're not quite to the weather yet, but there is other things happening with the storm that you're hearing coming. What are your thoughts on that? No thought. I mean, is it just like it's just, it's a thunderstorm?
It's gonna rain. It's a thunderstorm. Okay. We even thought, oh, cool, it's gonna ramp stuff up. It because we've heard the weather ramps things up, so we thought, oh, great. We'll take a little bit of thunderstorm to kind of have a good night.
Now, Shar, this, as you being an investigator, as Christy and I being investigators, Jeremy York is also an investigator, so he's going to ask, questions, not trying to debunk, but just getting your thoughts on stuff. And the question that he asked was there another camera nearby that could have caught a different angle?
The one that we had set up in the kids' room was not hooked up yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
So we just set it there, and they hadn't hooked it into the DVR system yet.
But you have accounted for everybody in that shot to know that that is not one of your team.
Oddly enough, me and Jenny were the only ones that went upstairs in the beginning. So we were the only two that were brave enough to go up there. And I don't even want to use the word brave, but we were the only two that ended up going up there. And everybody else was downstairs.
Well, and I think too, when you think about where the camera's set up and stuff like that and how lighting works and everything else, it would be, you saw people walking in the doorway and stuff earlier and you didn't see it there. So the fact that then it is there, I mean,
it's a good
I
point.
just feel like you would have caught it again and said, oh, well, there was somebody right there. That's where it came from.
And that's the thing. That's the thing about it. I agree. That's a great point, that there is, when you see people walk through, you see a definition of character in those shots. And it might have been Jenny. I don't remember. It must have been Jenny who actually stopped and looks in and then moves on. There's clearly something there about that. I think Greg has a question here. Why don't we wait on answering this? Because let's get through the rest of the investigation. Is a good question, Greg, but I think that I think that kind of is part of the summary of what's going on here. So there's this moment of a shadow, right? What happens next?
So next, then we're all downstairs trying to get the DVR hooked up. We're putting a camera in the kitchen. We're putting a camera in the blue room, which is downstairs where the two girls were. So we're trying to get everything set up. We're trying to get our recorders ready. I mean, we were just in total equipment mode at this point. We're all downstairs trying to figure everything out. I think maybe 10 minutes is all like that we were down there when the storm came in. So, we didn't get very far. Like, we got the DVR hooked up, but we didn't get hardly anything else set up. But
you got one more clip from that shot, from that angle.
Yep. Yeah. So, what happens then, this is after the storm has started. So if you have headphones in, you might just want to move them away just slightly, just to warn you. So this is now back in the attic, and that camera that we had set up is there, and you're going to see almost as if there's like something pacing behind. You see shadow play a little bit. And remember how I said the floor was really loose and like you moved as you walked through there. And so at some point, all of a sudden you see the floor and the camera like bounce, like someone stomping across the floor, and the door slams shut.
Okay, so once again, well, actually, we only have the one clip because it appears that the second clip I had of zooming in to show the door shut didn't go. So we have one clip. This is 51 seconds. Once again, you should be able, it's towards the end of the clip, you're going to be able to see pretty well that where there was light, there's no longer light. That's a door shutting, right? So let's take a look at that once again in the attic of the Villisca Axe Murder House. So, all right. I mean, in my mind, very prevalent. Christy, what do you think?
I couldn't really see it too well. So, and I don't know if it's just my screen or what, but I really couldn't see. I remember watching it on when you pulled it up earlier when we could see it. And so it is pretty interesting. So I'm kind of curious if anybody else was able to really see it too well.
I don't
I
want
wish
to
you had the other clip.
Yeah, and I don't want to replay the whole thing, but let me replay at least the first part of it, because that's where I think, and Char, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. That's where I see a lot of shadow play early on.
Yeah.
So why don't I just want to play that real fast for you all? Okay. I mean, that's just, to me, it's interesting. Now, Jeremy says, I saw the door shutting, but I'm more interested in what was moving the camera. Like you said, it being soft on the floor. Is it something walking over it?
That's what we kind of were guessing at. Is like, because the floor would bounce, and so that would move the camera as you're stomping towards the door and then slamming the door.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just for, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, just throwing my 2 cents in, and Shar, I think I talked to you about this. Christy, I don't know if I mentioned being at the Calumet at one of our events. This wasn't me, I wasn't a part of it, but someone had mentioned that at the end of the event, 3 people got into an elevator, and the elevator door didn't shut because it opened back up, and all of a sudden the elevator itself kind of goes down, and as if somebody got onto it, and then audibly said good evening to everybody in there. But my point of it being that, putting weight to stuff like that, I mean, that's not unheard of.
Right.
I will tell you, I know it's hailing, but I feel like if you go back and listen really carefully, I feel like there's a couple of EVPs in there.
Probably. And I almost felt like when I was listening to it descend to Greg, I felt like I could hear almost boot stomps with it when the floor was bouncing.
Was this the one you said that you also thought you heard sighs? No, maybe it was a different one that you started to hear sighs.
That's the next one.
Got it. And here's interesting. Jill says, I'm wondering how much residual shadows passing as the incident may be on a loop on which are intelligent and responsive to the real-time interaction. I mean, that's an interesting take on it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I mean, well, I almost answered my own question, and you're going to answer the question through EVP of residual anyway. So why don't we move on here? And so what happens next? First of all, we can hear, what are we hearing against the walls right now when that last clip aired?
So that is actual hail. So that clip actually happens shortly into where this next clip's going to get played. So basically this hailstorm comes in, and at first we kind of went outside and we're like, oh my God, it's hailing. And we're kind of on that little front porch by the back door in the kitchen. And we're like standing there. And so then the next thing you know, the hail starts coming down, and it's coming down really hard, and we start getting hit. So you hear a couple of us kind of scream, and that's more or less the ones that were standing on the porch getting hit by hail. So the hail starts coming down, and I think we're going to play like the first 90 seconds, kind of the setup of how it all comes rushing in at us. And what happens is there was hail coming down. It had to be about not quite golf ball size hail, but it was pretty big. And we ended up hearing later 70-mile-an-hour winds. So it was very windy, hailing. It was really intense. The house was shaking. It was so this first 90 seconds is pretty much the beginning of the storm and us reacting to it.
So, folks, this is, I mean, these are a little bit longer clips, but they're very worth it. And also, you may want to turn down the volume a little bit because this is intense and it's loud. The first one, it's like Shar says, it's a build up. The second one, which we're not going to play right afterwards, Shar will talk a little bit more of it, is going to be the full on thing. So just know that, folks. This is the first. And how are you feeling right now, Shar?
This is like I'm like I gotta take these out. I'm like ready to take them out.
All right. So this is the first 90 seconds of the hailstorm.
That just sounds so much scarier with the headphones on. Way different than listening to it on my phone.
Well, it's scarier being there.
I couldn't even imagine. That's insane.
So,
Yeah.
so Jeremy, who wants to debunk your entire night, no, I'm just kidding. But he does. His question to you is, for that last clip with the camera moving, and it's a good question. I'm just giving you a hard time, Jeremy. But, could the hail have been kind of affecting the house in terms of moving it? And I have an idea on it, but I'd like your thought, obviously, since you were there.
Absolutely. That's a very hey Ernie, it's obviously a very good question. The only problem with that is by watching the whole video, it doesn't really do that. That was the only time that it shook that much is when right before the door shut. It does maybe a little bit, but not like the rhythmic of footsteps. So I
Right.
did watch that several times just to make sure, and that's the only time that I saw it shake that much.
And what I love about this is that the point is that people feel comfortable to ask questions.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and the thing is that out of so many people that I know, both Christy and Shar, and I know there's a lot of others, remove the ego from the investigation and be able to be like, well, that's a good question, let's look at it. And I think that that's, to me, may I just say, that's what paranormal investigating is. That's how it should be, to not hang your hat on something and be open to other ideas. And so even though I'm joking with you, Jeremy, it's all good, and I appreciate that very much. I appreciate Shar, the ability to be able to send you these questions, and you're just like, yeah, well, that is exactly what we looked into. So we'll just put that down as it being fake. So now we're moving on to like there's nothing fake about that. So we got the storm, the first 90 seconds of that. That's pretty intense.
Yes.
What happens next? Because here at that point, what were you all thinking, all 8 of you in this house?
Well, okay, so if you've never been to Villisca, just outside of Villisca, down on the corner is like a big I don't know what it is, a big thing that has a bunch of wires, and the hail's hitting this and it's sparking. So we're like, oh my God, unplug the
Of course
DVR.
it is. Of course it's sparking.
I know. So we're like, unplug the DVR, right? So we're like, it was going to power surge. We have no idea. The only thing we're plugging into is an extension cord that goes out to the barn. And we're like, unplug our equipment. So the only thing we had running was anything freestanding, or it was like the recorders. So that was all we had running. And so at this point, we're all in the kitchen, kind of. And we're just kind of sitting there like, what do we do? What do we do? We just got nailed on the porch. There's no way we can make it to the barn. We'll wait it out. It felt like forever, but it was only maybe 10 minutes,
Okay.
if that. So it's coming down. And we're like sitting there, and I have one girl, Andy, my daughter, Nikki, and Jenny in front of me. And they're going into panic mode. And so I went into mom mode. Obviously, my daughter's right there, but I went into mom mode. And I'm like, it's okay. We're fine. It's all good. It's all good. These windows are super old. They made them really crappy back then. I mean, I'm lying through my teeth just to calm them down. And so I look over at another investigator, and I mouthed her as these all have their heads on. I'm like, there's 8 of us in this house. And she knew exactly what I meant. She's like, I can't say what she said, but she said something, mouthed it back. And so I was hovering over these guys. And so what you're going to hear next is the thick of the storm. And what happens next is the windows are busting, and the house is just like, everything is flying at us. And this isn't just like small pieces of glass. These are like glass sizes of like dinner plates are flying through the house at us.
This is nearly a 3-minute clip. Folks, listen to it. Listen to the entire thing. And imagine yourself in an investigation where every window in this location is breaking and it's flying at you. This is literally life-threatening, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So this is 3 minutes. And honestly, folks, you're going to hear a moment of history of people wondering if they're going to live. And I'm not understating this at all.
Not at all.
Okay. Here we go.
So intense. It's gonna
It is.
sound really bad, but I wish I had been there.
And you can hear the hail coming. Yes, this is the investigation that all the windows blew out, Jeremy. This I'm Storm Girl. So, basically, oh, I can't even breathe right now.
And,
Um,
and can I ask you, why is it that you can't breathe right now?
it just brings back like that was intense, but literally that was horrifying. I mean, we thought we were going to die. There is not
Yep.
one of us in there that we did not think we were going to make it out. Not only were the windows shattering, the glass was flying, the hail was coming through the windows, hitting things as you started to hear banging things. The house was literally shaking. I mean, literally shaking in the wind. I mean, there's nowhere out. There's nowhere to go. There's no basement to hide. There's nothing. We are all crammed in about a 5-foot radius, hugging onto each other. What are we going to do?
So, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but all of Villisca must have been completely wiped out at that point. So where did this storm hit?
It hit the house. It hit the museum. There was some that people had storm damage, some branches down here or there. If they had extensive damage, we did not see it. Johnny's house next door, fine.
So really the house. And so because Greg says, did you guys end up in the bedroom? But there's windows there as well. Where did you all end up?
We only safe space we could be was in the kitchen, because if you've been there, that back door has that overhang, and that's the only thing that was like protecting that glass from not getting hit. And so the bedroom windows gone, all 8 of us crammed, like we were in a huddle, like screaming. And I mean, all the screaming, all the noises, whether it's an EVP or not, I have no idea, because all of us were screaming and crying and hyperventilating. So, I mean, I'm going to chalk any voices or anything up that you heard during that segment was us.
I mean, there's really something to be said that you all are fine with that recording being played, because it really shows how defenseless you all were.
Mm-hmm. I'm not joking when we all were going to die. I don't know how many times I looked up at somebody else as I was holding on to these 3 girls, looked up at some, and they're like, we're going to die. Like everybody was mouthing, we're going to die. And this double paned original glass windows, which was really thick. So, I mean, double paned windows shattered.
Now, of course, and Jeremy says towards the beginning of the clip, I thought I heard a low moan. I mean, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jeremy asked, is that an EVP or a team member? But I mean,
I can't chalk anything up during that whole thing as an EVP because of how frantic and upset we were. I can't pick apart what is what. I mean,
I don't think anybody could. I mean, that's
yeah.
in that intense of a situation. There's no way any of you are even going to remember, oh, well, I said that, or oh, I didn't,
Right.
or that was me, or it wasn't me.
You're just trying to survive.
Well, yeah. Right. And even at that moment, our voices changed so much because of the panic. Like I wouldn't be able to recognize whose voice it was if they were saying something, because our voices were so not ours, because we were in panic mode. You don't talk like that all the time.
Well, luckily you've never had, because you've been back to Villisca, you never had to worry about a storm again happening at any of your Villisca investigations, right?
I am 10 for 10. Every time I go, there's a storm.
Every time you've gone, there's been a storm. And you and I are going to be there in October together. All right. Well, anyway, so
bring your raincoat.
bring an umbrella to use inside the building. So
like you need a shield or something,
right?
Just
bring your own storm shelter.
Oh my, yeah.
Bring your suit of armor.
Can we show some of the glass that you all took pictures of?
Yeah.
All right. So here, a couple pictures here of the glass that, I mean, this stuff is flying around. It could cut you all to ribbons.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this. I mean, that's not thin glass.
Mm-mm.
And that's still original glass, right? From
Yep.
Do you know where this, like, where is this at? Like, where's this picture
I
taken?
believe this is upstairs at the foot of the bed of the parents, right at the top of the stairs.
That's funny, Pamela. It's true, but I mean, this isn't
Well,
this
the
isn't my
storm.
Villisca story, but I mean, when I was there, I didn't want to leave because I didn't think I would live. So anyway,
Well, luckily enough, the storm will chase you if you're with me. So
so well, and so will the glass apparently.
yeah.
And this is stairs going up to the second floor, right?
Yep.
That's a big piece of glass.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
crazy because that came down the stairs. I mean, that's
Mhm.
a far spot from anywhere a window would be.
And that stair's kind of twisty.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody get cut at all? Anyone get hurt at all during this period?
Not during this, but later on, I ended up going to sit on the floor, and I got a little piece of glass in my hand, and that was it.
I mean, all things considered, I suppose that that was pretty
Minor.
Now, and you mentioned this before. At this point, how big was the hail?
I gotta say it was somewhere maybe not quite golf ball size hail, but slightly under, maybe like Super Bowl size, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's pretty darn big.
It's big.
So got a picture of the outside of the house the next morning when the sun rose, which I bet you all were.
No. This is actually after the storm cleared and we could run to the barn.
Oh, that's great because this is July, so the sun would have set later, right?
Yeah. So after the storm, and it was clear enough that we could all run to the barn, we ran to the barn.
So you got this.
Yeah, so you can see that it's double paned. And you can see how it hit the house, the hail marks on the house too.
Unbelievable.
Well, and look at you can see the shade is down. So the glass was flying, like the shade was flying up and the glass had been flying in.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So at that point you packed up and went home, right?
No, we went out to the barn, and I think it was Jenny that called Johnny, and she's just still in hysterics, and she's like, "Oh my God." I know, she's like, "Oh my God, all the windows busted out, blah, 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 blah. You need to come over here and fix it. Like the windows blew out." And like, I don't even know what she said, but she was just, hysterically telling him. And he wasn't home. He was somewhere else across town. And he was kind of like,
it's just a storm.
Okay.
Right? It's just a storm to them. It's just a thunderstorm that came through. Nothing severe.
Right. And Johnny's heard everything under the sun about this house, right? So he's like, "Oh, okay." And so eventually he comes. I don't know how long it took him, but it took quite a while. And he shows up and he's like, "Oh my God." And he's like, "Is everybody okay?" And we're like,
severity.
"Yeah."
Has he ever heard these recordings?
I think I gave them to him on our next trip back. I don't know if he listened to them or not, but yeah, he was he felt really bad, and he showed up with some plywood, and he boarded up the windows, cleaned up all the glass. I think we were out in the barn for maybe 2 hours while they did the cleanup.
Wow. He felt bad. What did he feel bad about? I mean, it wasn't his fault, or was it?
Well, I think he felt bad because he thought we were overreacting. He didn't realize how bad
he
it
felt
was.
bad that his first instinct when Jenny called was, "Oh, for God's sake, stop being a baby."
Yeah.
Well, and Jeremy, we talked about this, but it is worth saying again, because this is what's unique about this, Shar, is who else?
So
who else got hit?
The museum, the Villisca Museum, which is no longer there, got hit.
And it's not next door. It's not next door.
It's up in town.
It's about a mile away, thereabouts, 8 blocks to a mile away, I would say.
Yeah, and
diagonal from the.
And we didn't survey the whole town, but as we had left the next day, we did see some tree branches down, but we didn't see anybody that had windows blown out or anything like that. And Johnny's house right next door was perfectly fine, untouched.
Did you see any reports on the weather just afterwards about any, like, what came through or anything? Because, I'm not saying a tornado came through. Obviously not a tornado came through. But, when it comes to like tornadoes and stuff, it's so selective with what hits. I'm just curious if there was any sort of talk about phenomenon at all or anything, or if probably at that point you couldn't give a crap. But
the only thing we heard about was there was 70-mile-an-hour wind
Okay.
gusts that we had heard about. The barn did have some damage too. The windows in the barn blew out, and the truck that we had came in ended up being totaled.
The barn with the baby coffin was hit a little bit. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
As long as the baby coffin was fine, that's what
That
counts here.
that
Oh my
lived.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm sure this was on your radar of which direction the storm hit.
This direction. This is where the storm hit.
It hit the Shar direction. And I'm not trying to make fun of you, Greg. It's just funny how
I have no idea, honestly. And if I did know, I really don't remember. I just remember that we heard the 70-mile-an-hour wind. So,
but you didn't hear of any tornadoes at all in the area.
mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm.
So, and then Pam asks, were the windows all around the house? So, did it just hit one side or at least two sides? It hit all sides, right?
It mostly hit that one side that's in between the barn and the house.
So that would be where this picture comes from,
Right.
from the back,
Yeah.
the back of the house.
Yep. And I don't, and I think the front, because it has the front porch as well, that ended up being okay as well.
Okay.
So I think it was just that side, and that seemed to be where the wind was coming the hardest too. So
Got it. Okay. So
that's kind of a strange spot just because the barn is like right there. So it kind of made like a little wind tunnel in there.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a clear way to hitting Johnny's house, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why his house shouldn't have been hit.
He's like 10 feet away.
Yeah. Wow. So okay. So you stick around by the baby coffin for a couple hours after.
Yeah. And then he
Yeah.
So Jeremy's back and he says, I didn't see any hail in the picture. Was there any hail inside the building?
Oh, yeah, there was some, but I think by the time we got in to go get pictures, it had kind of melted, but it had been coming in and hitting. And I think there was a picture. I had a picture from outside, and if you want to see it, I can send it to you. But it's not, again, it was after, so it wasn't the full size. So, but yeah, it did come through the windows once they were shattered. But like I said, you can see a couple little pebbles of hail and a big puddle that it's sitting in, because we didn't go back in for quite a while.
That's right. For those of you just joining us, we are talking about Shar's investigation of the Villisca Axe murder house on August 18th, 2011. There was more than just Shar there, but we're going through the entire night of the first time that her and Jenny Davis and other people were there. And this is Shar's recollection and her recordings and stuff that we're sharing tonight for those that are just joining us. And I do prompt people, if you've missed the first part of this program, to please watch the whole thing, because it's extraordinarily interesting. And Jeremy, I'm giving you a hard time. It is very much a big an interesting case. And I understand too, because Greg also says, doesn't the house face south? And I do believe it does.
I
but
think so.
But I mean, that's the point. There was something not quite right about this storm. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be one of those people that the weather is moving against people and stuff, but there isn't something right about this storm.
Well, and I feel like the people across the street too would have had a bunch of damage too. At least their windows would have been out. Their front windows on their house would have been out. And Johnny's house, it would have been the other side of his house if it was blowing even in that direction. And that's the only direction that really makes sense, honestly. So the fact that nobody else had windows blow out is kind of odd.
Ernie, Ernie, if I don't know if you know that, but Villisca actually is not 8 people killed. It's 6,547 people killed at Villisca. So they're just trying to hide that from all of us.
Sorry, I was laughing at Ernie's comment.
Right, exactly. Also, Jeremy, I just want to say, please continue asking the questions. I mean, it's a, like you said, it's an interesting case. Let's move along though. So now, how do you all rally? Do you all get together to rally about what do we do next?
Well, so we've got out to the barn and we're just kind of all shaking, just kind of like, oh my God, what just happened?
Right.
I'm still trying to calm a few people down. We're still trying to like figure out what to do. And now we're like, what do we do? What do we do? We have no idea what to do. And a couple of people were like, well, we hadn't even eaten yet. We drove straight down there. So they're like, well, we're gonna go find some food and wait for Johnny because it's gonna be a while. You know, like we'll go find food for everybody. Just stay here. Okay, whatever. So they left. So I think it was like 3 or 4 of them left. And so we're all sitting on the porch. And it was at this moment that I'm looking at the house and I start rocking back and forth. And I'm like, oh my God. And I looked over at somebody. I'm like, give me a cigarette. And my
Shock
daughter
hits
looks at
you.
me. I
Shock hits
know.
you at that point, right?
Yeah. And my daughter looked at me and she goes, Mom, you don't smoke. I said, give me a cigarette or
I
you're
do
grounded.
today.
Right. And I don't smoke, but I had been in such mom mode that the whole reality of everything didn't hit me until I got to the barn and everybody else was calm, especially my daughter. You know, I'm like worried about her and now she's calming down and now I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? Like what's happening here?
How old is your
So
daughter?
she was 17 at the time.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even
Yeah.
imagine. I have 4 of my own, so I get
She
that.
hates me. No, she doesn't hate me.
That never ends.
No, but it became a running joke that anybody that wanted to date my kids had to go to Villisca if they were going to date my kids. That ended up being the new theory. So we sat there, we waited for Johnny. It took a little while for him to get there. At that time, it's starting to get dark naturally. And, he shows up and it must have been 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I don't know how long it was. It took quite a while for him to clean everything up and get the boards up and everything. So during that time, we had left that one camera running still, and then a few recorders that were still running. And so the next EVP you're going to play is probably a great EVP, but the worst EVP,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
And this happened, when listening to the whole thing, this is after we've run out of the house. A few girls had gone back in to get their purses and whatever, and they left to get food. And then that's when this happened. So Johnny hasn't even showed up yet, and this EVP happens.
Okay, and we might play this a couple times. Here we go. We're going to play it again, but before we do so, walk us through what we're hearing right now.
Okay, so I believe this recorder was downstairs, and what we believe this to be might have been the Stillinger girls. I can't say 100%, but I feel like it might be them. And you can hear a little girl screaming, and you can actually hear some thud sounds. And you can hear her screams kind of dwindle away. And then at some point, you hear a gentleman say, "Stop moving around." There's some other voices in there too. Again, some of that might be one of us outside now that the windows are wide open. So I can't say for sure what else is in there, but that's what I get out of it.
So once again, whether or not there's people outside, there is nobody in the house at the moment.
Nobody in the house at all.
Okay, folks, now that you heard what Shar believes it is, which I believe too, take another listen. So, wow.
Yeah,
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
it is. It makes me sad.
And someone asked earlier about residual energy and whatnot. I mean, that clearly, in my mind, that's all that could possibly be. Now, this is important, and this is here. I'm going to put something out here that that you can react to, Shar. But I mean, this is very important. It's something that all investigators need to kind of keep in mind. especially going back on stuff. So Jill asks, are you okay? The reviewing is bringing you back to the moments of the evidence. How are you feeling from it now?
My stomach's a little like all wound up and a little antsy, a little anxious. It never really goes away. I'll be flat honest. This never goes away. I hear a train and I'm right back in that house. I hear hail, I'm right back in that house. It's forever. I will never not be in that house when I hear rain or a train.
Now, Bonnie, Jenny's mother, says they heard the train too. That was not happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you reached out to Brandon Alvis? Ernie says that he has had a very similar EVP that he caught there. Have you sent it to him?
I have not. I honestly, I don't even know if I've actually met him. So no. I mean, I know people have gotten screams before. I don't know to what extent some of those are, but it would be interesting to compare with him for sure. Maybe Ernie can help me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ernie, for that. Now, Carol also says, did the guy say get on the ground?
He could have said get on the ground, or I thought he said stop moving around. They're very similar. It's possible. I just thought, to me, I thought it said stop moving around.
Pamela says it's heart-wrenching, which it truly is.
It is.
Jeremy says that you are very visibly affected. Are you good to go on?
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, yeah.
And
I'm okay. Thank you. I appreciate everybody asking me, because this really is really hard. I mean, this is a really tough investigation. I mean, this was a make or break moment. I mean, we came home, we didn't think we were ever going to do this again.
Right. Carol's wondering, is one of us brushing our teeth? Absolutely, we are. I mean, that's what we do during lives, is we brush our teeth. I can hear what you're hearing, though, and I don't know where it's coming from, but
is it me maybe brushing up against my sweater? Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows what it is? Ernie does say, please send it to him, and he will get it to Brandon. Obviously, he knows people. Clearly, whatever. By the way, I mean, if you send it to him, you'll get one of these back, and self-addressed stamped envelope, and that's
I feel like Char's just been traumatized.
Well, I mean, this was a tough night anyway, and this doesn't make it any better, quite frankly. So just know.
Your reaction to that was just.
What, did you almost throw up? I mean, that's what I thought I heard.
No.
I mean, that's what.
No.
I'm died right there.
I mean, that's
I just
Pamela
laughed.
says flow deeper. For all of us, quite frankly, all of us need.
Oh, Ernie, we love you.
All right. So why don't we move along then?
Okay.
So we got that. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. And Jeremy, before we move on, Jeremy, who's one of the nicest people in the world, this was one of your first investigations. After all this, you're still doing this. So much respect. A lot of people would never do it again, but here you are a decade later and still moving forward. Absolutely.
I don't give up easy.
No. No. And we'll just put out there too, Jenny, who was a part of it. She still investigates. She's still strong as well. So let's move along. So that happens. You don't know that happens. That EVP happens. I mean, obviously, none of the EVPs happens generally until after you start reviewing. But at the same time, you weren't even in the house. You're just.
We were not in the house. Yeah, I can tell you a funny story of when I found that EVP, though.
Sure.
So on the ride home, none of us were talking. I mean, it was pure silence the whole way home. And so I'm like, well, I've got 6 hours. I might as well start listening to EVPs, right? So I'm listening. It's shortly after the storm, so it's not too far in. And I hear this on noise canceling headphones, and I'm sitting in the back of this truck, and I scream super loud because I just do. And I throw my headphones and they go all the way up to the driver. We almost went off the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were kind of mad at me until I made everybody listen to it. They're like, oh my God. And then it was even more silent on the way home.
Wow. So what happens next?
So we're outside, like I said, for a while now. Where these next EVPs come in, it's somewhere throughout the night. So we wait. Johnny comes in. He fixes all the windows. He clears everything up. We chat with him slightly for a little bit. And then, and yes, Jeremy, thank you for that. I appreciate that comment as well. But Johnny, his comment to us before he leaves after that is like, well, that ought to stir some stuff up. And I'm like, dude, it already did, because I've already had the attic incident and everything. I'm like, no more. So
no more, even though
no
we're to stay
more.
here, no more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're like, we're staying the night, and we stayed the whole night. And so we decided to make the best of it. And we never went upstairs. I mean, I think a few of us did go upstairs, but I never went back upstairs. I refused to.
Wow, really?
Yep, I would not go back upstairs. No, actually, I take that back. I did go up once, but I went up with like a whole group of people. I wouldn't go up with 1 or 2 people. I wanted to go with like 4 people.
Absolutely. No. Now, and don't name names, or however, this isn't meant to be picking on anybody, because if I were in that situation, I'm not sure how I would have reacted. Did anyone say to you in the group, just like, let's just go?
Nope.
Everybody wanted to stick around and go further.
My daughter wanted to go.
Fair enough.
She's
like I said, no,
she's
there's nothing
not
wrong
18,
with it.
so
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. I was just curious. Okay, so
yeah.
So where are we at now with the evening?
Okay, so now we're back in the house, and we're gonna make the most of it. We're gonna do the best we can. And I tried to see the silver lining. I said, well, hey, it's pretty soundproof now that the windows have plywood over them. So let's go for it. So we did a lot of work downstairs in the blue room and in the parlor and in the kitchen. A group of us went upstairs, but went to the kids' room. I don't think we spent any time in the parents' room, and I don't believe anybody else went back in the attic until morning. So, so we did some EVP work. So I think the next 3 are somewhere throughout the night. And the only reason I picked these 3 is because it's the same voice saying these 3 EVPs. And I'm wondering if it's the dad.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to play the first one?
Yeah.
And do you want me to play it just like 3 times in a row?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what comes up here. One more time. So, and we're going to play it one more, but why don't we talk about what you believe is happening there?
So obviously there's still some rain happening, because you can still hear a little bit happening. But I hear a gentleman screaming, why? So to me, it almost feels like maybe it's the dad. Why is this happening?
Now that takes place at it's only a 6-second clip, but that takes place within the first 3 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty quickly early on. Why don't we play it again for everybody? The other voices part of the team?
Could be. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. I think this is also at the part, maybe we might have still been outside and you could still hear us. It's really kind of muddy where this all kind of fits together sometimes after all this time.
Did you have any men with you, or was it all females?
We had one gentleman with him, and he is the most quiet person I've ever met in my life. Like, he barely
Christopher, right?
Christopher. And I don't even know if he really asked a whole lot of questions the whole night. And he has a very soft voice. So this was not him at all. And during the whole storm, I think he was scared to the point of not speaking. Like, he never even muttered a word for like the next 4 hours.
Do we want to go ahead with the next one then, just as we're in the... Okay, so folks, this is very short. We'll play this a couple times in a row also. That was, I don't think I got the right one there.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Was it? Because it still sounds like the why.
No,
you all think it sounded different?
It sounded different to me.
I'm going to play it again then, because to me, it sounded like why again, but here we go.
Yeah, no, it's the same voice, and he's just like, no, don't hurt me.
Boy, I don't get that. That's the interesting thing about EVPs is that not everyone hears the same thing, and it's fascinating to me how that works. But it is certainly the same voice, I'm going to play it one more time for everybody. And I'm just curious if everyone else is hearing it to be completely different. You two, which you both have very seasoned ears, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Putting these together, I really thought that, oops, I made a mistake here. I played the same one again. But here we go here. And I'm interested in everyone else's thoughts.
I can see where in the beginning you like the first part where it says no, don't, like, I can hear why you would say it was why. I
Yeah,
can hear the similarity, but the hurt me part
it's pretty clear to you, huh?
Mhm.
so clear.
Wow, it isn't for me. That's just interesting.
And
I mean,
there's no rain sounds either, so it's obviously a different part.
well, that's interesting. That's interesting. So the YY has rain to it, right?
Mhm.
So here's the YY. And the don't hurt me. I get it, but it sounds very similar. And you're absolutely right. It is absolutely the same voice that is coming through. That is so interesting. Now, Pamela's like, no, I heard don't hurt me for sure. So
Yeah.
So were those like how far apart were those? Like were they
I
pretty close together or like hours apart?
No, they were all within like maybe a half an hour time frame, I think, that we caught these. We literally walked away with over 75 EVPs that night.
unbelievable.
It took us forever to get through because we would listen for just a few minutes and we'd have to shut it off.
Apparently, everyone has better ears than I do. I'm going to check the warranty on mine. See what's going on there. All right. It wasn't through a spirit box, so I don't know what's going on, right? So that's interesting. I mean, honestly, the idea of people hearing different things, especially when it comes to EVPs, is fascinating to me. So that is really cool. So we got the dad saying, or we thought possibly the dad saying, why?
Right.
Then no, don't hurt me. And there's another one, right?
Yeah. And so it's the same voice again. And so he's looking for Paul, which is one of the kids. And so because of what he's saying, why no, don't hurt me, that's why I'm going with the theory that it could be the dad. So, and then for him looking for one of the kids would make sense, especially if he's the first one to be murdered. I don't know what the time lapse is in between each person, but obviously he's killed first.
What if he's like talking and screaming that after the fact that he's already dead and he's watching the rest of it happen?
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
I mean, we've talked also, getting a little off tangent here, about the possibility, because you've been there, what, 10 times? 8 times? 10 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the fact is, when you talk and communicate with the children, that first of all, they don't seem to want to even explore that idea. That's not something they want to talk about. And you and I have talked about the possibility. What if they don't even know? They don't even realize that they've been murdered.
Right. I mean, that's just it. You don't know. It's like, that's the hardest part about paranormal investigating. You don't know. This is the unknown. You can't prove you are this 100%, and so you have to go with what's happening and go off of each time I go. And that's why I go back so many times, because it draws me back in and I want to know. My heart just is like stuck there going, I want to make sure you're okay. Are you here? What can I do? Anything. And I don't know. It's something about it, but we don't know.
This is an interesting question that I'm sure you've thought of before. Jeremy asks, in these EVPs, is it possible you may have caught the entire murder spree in real time on audio?
Possibly.
I mean, have you ever heard, like Ernie had said that there's that Brandon Alvis had picked up some same type of EVPs of screaming, whatnot. Have you heard other investigators who've come across very similar EVPs of what seemed to be residual?
Yes, and I've heard one or two, and I wish I could remember who it was, but I've actually heard a few screams, and it's not the same scream I have. It's a different scream. So it's very possible that somehow out of all the people that investigated, if you pieced everything together, we could recreate the whole entire evening, word for word, on what happened.
That is ghoulishly interesting.
Right? Exactly. So,
I
I
mean, I
mean,
can imagine Christy would be all over that, to be honest. I mean, honestly, so would
You're right,
I.
I would. That would
I mean, I'm
be
not kidding when I say
amazing
that.
to
Yeah.
do.
well, and to be honest, I have several visits of going to Villisca audio that I have never listened to just
I
because
hear you.
I can't.
Yep.
What if it's just the whole night just plays on a loop over and over and over again until somebody figures out who did this?
That's
Damn.
interesting.
Right? I
Like the
know,
worst
right?
Groundhog's Day ever.
Right. That they really
Right.
want that to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow, that
And just
interesting.
when stuff comes through depends on how much energy, and the storm itself could have just created enough energy for a lot of it to come through. And so that, I mean, that's something I think about all the time. Like if everything runs on energy, how do we create it in a way that's easily used?
Right.
Um, you
Well,
know,
and there's
I think there's a lot of ways that we go about things that don't necessarily work.
right.
So,
Well, and there's also the theory that because everything is energy, and when you connect to certain energies, you get that information. So it's possible that I got certain information because that energy there connected with me and maybe
Mhm.
not the next person.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there's 8 people killed. There's how many people that did it? I mean, that's a lot of different energies in there, and there's a lot of people that go in there. So there's
Which
so much to it. It's just like this whole
and and that's the part about it that is really interesting. Like you said, so many people go in there. And you and I think all three of us talked before that this is I consider Villisca the STD of the paranormal, because people go in there and they do, not all, right, but they
right.
conjure. There's
Hmm.
people who go in there specifically to conjure. So to get to the layer of the actual family isn't necessarily going to be that easy. There is other layers that I think people are more interested in, more
Yeah.
than just the murder of it.
see, and when I think about it, people going in there to conjure and all these people going in there, oh, evil, evil. But the problem with that is that's like saying the family's evil, but it wasn't the family. It was the guy who murdered the
I
family who
but
didn't die in the house itself.
but what I'm saying though is that the people who are conjuring are not conjuring. They don't care about the family. They're going in there because there's a preconceived notion
Yeah.
that house is evil, and they're going in there to conjure other things. When I was there in 2014, the week after, there was somebody who came in there to investigate, and he stabbed himself. And why would he stab himself, especially when it has nothing to do with the murders? It has nothing to do with the children or the family or even the killer, in my opinion. I think what it is that people come in there because there has been something else that's been conjured in there that has nothing to do with the murders in 1912, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. I mean, it's like I feel like, and this is where me and you are really alike, Greg, is like we go in looking for the story, and the story is the family, not what we can bring in there,
Yeah.
not what we can do, conjure up or anything else. We want to hear the family story, and that's the piece that keeps taking me back
Yeah.
there. And that's where I have so much respect for people that want to hear the spirits tell their story, even though this is not a great story. Tell me your story. I don't want to know whatever is conjured up over here. I don't care about their story. I want your story. I want the family story. You tell me. I'm not going to come in here and tell you what my narrative is. You need to tell me.
See, and that's what I think makes such a huge difference is I feel like people who go in with the intentions of listening
Mm-hmm.
and hearing what's there and hearing the story, those are the people who get the EVPs and they get
Yeah.
the story and they
Mhm.
get those connections. So I think walking in there and saying, I'm specifically here to talk to the family, that energy itself makes it easier for that connection to be made.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
No,
Absolutely.
I know I would agree with that too. And that's a tough place because there's so many layers to the location. Now, let's move on because there's more that we want to walk through. So you had
Did you want to play the Paul one?
yeah, because that's the part of the 3 that you had talked
Mhm.
about. Okay, so here's the third one. It's a short. I'm gonna play this a couple times. I'm gonna play it again, but who's Paul?
Paul is one of the kids.
Right.
So, and then again, it's the same voice from the last two EVPs. So is this the dad now somewhere else trying to find Paul?
Now, we're gonna play it. Let's play it 2 more times, and then people can. I mean, it's pretty clear. It actually sounds like there's something else before Paul. Like
I think that's us talking.
oh, so you're ruining EVPs.
Well, I'm being honest.
So okay, one more time, folks. I don't think that is one of you guys, though. I think
It sounds like he's saying, "Where's Paul?"
it's twice. I agree.
Oh, play it again.
We'll play it one more time.
Yeah. Where's Paul? Where's Paul?
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. So, and
There
that's
you
the
go.
fun. And that's the fun thing about doing. I mean, relatively speaking, is fresh perspectives, right? Because you all hear this, and I've gone through the same thing too, where it's just like, oh wow, I didn't hear that before. Thank you. That's very interesting stuff. Going to the comments, Jeremy says, I see this as unsolved. I wonder if anyone has caught a name on audio that doesn't belong to the family. I mean, that's the thing about this thing, that there's a lot. I mean, there's so many pieces to this story.
We've gotten tons of different names that don't match anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move along. So you got those. And once again, while this is happening, while you are investigating, you're getting, I mean, these are all EVPs that for the rest of the night we're going to play. What about what's going on that you are visually seeing? Is there anything visually seeing after the storm, or are you just all going to be hearing stuff mainly through the EVPs and the recordings afterwards?
So visually, like I said, we spent a lot of time downstairs. And so we did get some K2 meters working, some flashlights working. And the flashlights we had set up, one for Lena, one for Ina. And we would they were different colors. We specifically say, this is yours, this is yours. We'd ask a question to that particular person, and that flashlight would go off. And the K2 next to it would go off. So we were actually having very intelligent responses and stuff. And we really, at that point, we are so focused on the children. We want to talk to the children. We're not even going to entertain anything else other than that. After that storm, we were done. We're like, let's just have some kids and play. So we really focused on that. We played games, we sang songs, we did whatever we could to try to interact with the kids. And this is before we had even heard of EVP bursts or anything like that. So we just let recorders run, and we didn't hear any of this till later. So this is when we were downstairs playing, and we were playing games and all this stuff. So I'm not sure at what point we were doing, but this is a little kid saying something. I don't know if you want to play it first and see what people think they hear.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think I caption it.
Oh,
so
well.
Don't, if you want to hear it without knowing what we think it says, just shut your eyes and you can listen. Here we go. So I'm going to play it one more time.
And we are kind of talking over it a little bit. So, but yeah, so what I heard was, hi, mommy, they just want to play with the kids.
And I mean, for me, and Christy, you let me know what you think. I mean, what really obviously stands out is the hi, mommy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I mean, there's nobody there that has a voice like that.
Mm-mm.
The other part's a little bit harder for me to hear personally, but doesn't mean it's, I mean, especially when you hear the last word, it's just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like the last part of it, I can make out, but I think that's, one of those things where I think anyone can, hear something different from it. But it's definitely the same little kid talking. So, just got to go with what you feel it was because you were the one that's there. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've
Absolutely.
Yeah.
listened to that like a billion times in a billion different ways too. So,
Yeah. And that personally to me, like that made me happy because I'm like, all these people, like you said, go in there and do these random things and they're like, look, they just want to play with the kids. Like
Yeah.
we're here too, so that made me happy that they knew we were trying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the next one that we're going to play is this one's right away at the beginning. I'm getting ready to get up and leave the blue room and go back out to the parlor and swap out people that we were going to take turns. And so just as I'm getting up, you can hear really fast at the beginning, it says Char's leaving, and it's a kid's voice. And then it goes on for a little bit of me talking about the flashlights, who I set up for who and whatever. And then towards the end, it says, Nikki, come play with us, which is my daughter, which, she wasn't pleased to hear that. But but I thought it was sweet.
All right, let's play that right now.
And I think the one that takes from the back of that is Lena, and the one that takes exactly is Lena. Or at least that's what we have it set up. I don't know what yeah, I just did a couple of you don't have to, but if we want to sleep in the truck and sleep.
Couple things here. Yes, this is live. This should be good enough evidence that it is live. And then Jeremy, is an interesting question here. Was there anyone on the team that may have resembled the mother? And I'm going to take it a step further. Maybe the energy. I mean, first of all, this doesn't match what the possible explanation of why the murders happened that you had mentioned earlier. But say that it more of like, is the energy of the mother present? And you're a mother. How many of the team were mothers at that point?
1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 at least that I can remember.
But, and we're going into the future now. This has never left you.
Mm-mm.
And there's always been something that's come back through mediumship and other stuff that's prolonged this. It's no longer a location you've gone to. It is a part of your life. Yeah.
It literally will call me. Like I will have dreams about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to go back again. And that's true. I mean, I don't think anybody on the team looked like the mother. And remembering what she looks like, I don't see anybody that even would look close to that. But because my daughter was there, maybe because I was an active mother at the location, that could be part of it. I mean,
I was thinking that actually.
That's interesting.
That's a really good way to look at it, and good question actually.
So I'm going to play that one more time for everybody, and you can take a listen. And these, I didn't caption these because I didn't quite know where things fell per se, but also I just felt like that it just needed to be left and for people to hear it for themselves. So here it is.
And I think the one that takes from the back of that is Lena, and the one that takes exactly is Lena. Or at least that's what we have it set up. I don't know what yeah, I just did a couple of you don't have to, but if we want to sleep in the truck and sleep.
To me, it feels like that stuff floats over the conversation that's being had.
Well,
Mhm.
and it sounds like the same voice of the "Hi, mommy," but it sounds like at least at the end when you hear it again, it sounds more like someone in distress.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think because my daughter would not leave the parlor. She was stuck on that couch. She was done. She did not want to go in that room at all. And so when they're like, Nikki, play with us, like they wanted her to come in, and she was like, she didn't want anything to do with it.
It feels like they wanted to make her feel happy,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I mean, that's a child, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
Like they knew she wasn't participating and they wanted
Yeah.
her to be a part of it.
And they knew that she was troubled, that she was
Mhm.
distressed, and they wanted to do something to make her feel better.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
and that's good to see, because everyone looks, and that includes me, and maybe not Christy. I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Christy, but for me, you know, especially when we first went out there, you know, Villisca could be a nasty place, and it can be,
Mhm.
but I think people need to remember that there's these wonderful moments that, you know, when you peel away these layers, that there is that very innocent, especially the children, the very innocent sort of like, just play with us, just spend time with us. That's what I've always gotten from them.
So seeing you say like it
Mhm.
can be a nasty place, but I think we talk about this so often. Like it depends on what you decide it to be.
Yeah.
What
Right.
are you going to
Yeah.
allow in? What are you going to listen to? You know, why is if you're in there trying to conjure up something evil or talk to something evil, do you really think a little kid is going to come talk to you? Probably not.
Well,
Right.
like I said, I mean, we had a medium in there when I went there, and they're just like, we don't want to talk about the murders, is what Justin came up with. You know, just like, we're done talking about that. But you know, there is, I mean, the guy the next week who stabbed himself, I mean, he says that he was taken over. Maybe he was. It's not for me to say. But my first inclination is that, to your point, Christy, that people go in there
And invited in.
expecting it
Mhm.
to be a nasty location.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I've learned over time of doing this is that, you know, it's if in order for that stuff to even come to you, you have to invite it in. So if
Right.
that's what you're asking for, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, and I go, you know, in previous when I've gone and other times, like I get some of the ick stuff coming through
Mhm.
wanting to antagonize, and I'm like, nope, I'm not here for you. I'm not paying attention to you. Like,
Exactly. You just cut
you
it off.
know, yeah.
Right. And first, I've seen some people that writing that they're sorry that they came in late. Please, I'm glad you're here. You know, please know. I mean, but I would urge everyone, if you have a chance, to rewatch this at some point, because this is very interesting, and we're not quite done yet. We have a little bit more left to do. We're not going to keep everyone that much longer, but so we get through that, and what happens next, Char?
So we did go through the night and we just tried to play with them, and it seemed like it had kind of calmed down, so it wasn't as intense anymore. And eventually, I think probably by like 3 in the morning, maybe we were all like, well, we're kind of tired. Some people had already kind of curled up and went to sleep, and um, we all huddled in the parlor together, and
Yeah.
we went to sleep basically. And so we got up the next morning and um, stood on the front porch, held hands, said a prayer for the family, and thanked them for letting us be there. And that was kind of about it. And then we went home and pretty much in a traumatized state.
But there's more. There's a couple more you want to play. We want to play a couple more pieces that we want to play here. And
Yeah.
Greg, as far as our trip coming up, I don't suppose you're stopping at Farrar School when you are out there. I've never been to Farrar, but our trip in October, Shar, is Melbourne. Which, if you all watch my Ghost Box Live, and Christy and Lindia were on it, we did an investigation of Melbourne one night. And then the next day, because they're not far from each other at all, we're going to do Villisca.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because there's a Melbourne and a Villisca connection,
Yeah.
supposedly. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Right. So what do we got left here to play? There's a couple things here. Do you want me to tell you what they are?
Yeah, because it kind of cuts it off, so I'm not sure what it
They
says.
cut it out. Sorry. So that they don't want you here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's obvious.
Yeah. So I mean, take a listen. Take a listen to this EVP. We're gonna play it 2 more times. One more. Okay.
Yeah.
Which seems par for the course for Villisca anyway.
Yeah. I
In
mean,
you know,
and it's interesting to me because I feel like when I do focus on the family, it irritates whatever else is there. So it's not surprising to me that during the time that we would be playing with the kids and paying attention to them, that somebody would want to tell me otherwise.
my question to you, and maybe you haven't really thought about it, or maybe you thought about it too much. What is that other person?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, it's a collection of things. It's I don't know.
You think it's
I
just things people brought there on purpose?
it's I'm gonna say it's a collection of bad intentions from the humans.
Right.
It just makes me sad because, like, obviously there's this family that's still there that's already been through enough, and then people are just trying to make it worse.
Yeah.
You can't even find peace now, which is really
Yeah.
disappointing.
They're almost an afterthought in some way, aren't they? When I mean,
Sadly.
not for you, not for you, not for us,
Mm.
but when you think about some people who go out there, I think in some ways what the original atrocity that happened, or the fact that there is a family still there, that seems to be almost secondary now.
Yeah. I think most people go out there looking for who did it, and they want to connect with that energy of who did it. And they're really going in for the thrill, the fear factor, the
Yeah,
thrill. And
absolutely.
it's sad. And I think too, some of what's there, it's the collection of what the humans have brought in with their intentions, but it's also what there's a collection of probably my fear that's been attached to it as well, because I probably left an impression in that location as well. And I mean, energy's energy. You leave an impression everywhere you go, whether you're dead or alive. And so I feel like it's a collection of that, and it's a collection of what that's affected as well.
Now there's one more EVP, and it's She's a Brave Soul.
Mm.
Why don't we play that and we can talk about that?
Peace, Sarah.
Going to play it a couple more times because I think the more you hear it, the more you actually hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we go.
Peace, Sarah.
One more time.
Peace, Sarah.
Okay, so who do you think they're talking about?
I actually think they're talking about Cheryl, because I think I was asking her something. You hear me say Cheryl, and she seemed to be, not saying that she wasn't affected, but she seemed to be the most cool and calm throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like he's talking about her because she seemed to be the most, I'm staying on track, where the rest of us kind of fell apart a little bit at the beginning.
I think Pam has an outstanding question for you.
Sure.
She says, since it's been a while and you have more experiences now, do you wish you did things differently in the investigation?
It's a great question.
That is a great question. Yes and no. No, because we went back in and we were focusing on the family and the kids, which is what I would do anyways. Yes, in the way that I wish I would have had better equipment and was able to hear what they were saying at the time and be able to interact with them a little bit more.
And may I challenge you
Mhm.
that you didn't believe in your mediumship skills at that point?
Yeah, I actually really wasn't aware that that was even a thing.
So
That on the other two, so that too, being the medium part of it too, um, how would that work? How, because I felt very affected. So it would have been interesting to see how that could have played out. Now I have been back since I know about the mediumship, and I chose to not be open.
over on my personal profile page, Cheryl had asked a couple questions.
Mhm.
First, and you kind of allude to it, did dreams come back with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just more or less what happens is I'm in the house. I'm just there.
Right.
So it's like it's calling me back, like you're supposed to be here. It's not that I'm reliving the investigation or the storm or anything like that. It's just like, oh yeah, the family's calling.
And then she also asked, do you mean people are wanting to bring more deceit, trying to get answers? And I mean, if you don't mind me saying so, I don't necessarily think even I don't even know if any more people are trying to get answers. I mean, some do, I'm sure, but I do feel like that people go into this place, and you two, I mean, both of you, I mean, Shar a number of times, Christy has investigated in there by herself. I've been there once. I don't think that some people go in there not wanting answers at all, but wanting to kind of come back and say, this happened to me when I've been there, kind of create some sort of storyline or something.
The ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm just gonna say it.
you're right, and I feel like, unfortunately, and I'm not gonna like do any name calling or anything else like this. Um, Thanks, Craig, but I think it's like, unfortunately, Hollywood and TV has based everything on the fear factor and how big and tough can you be to run into this place. And, it just kind of gives a weird perception and you don't really get the full picture of what happens. And I think everything I've seen about Villisca focuses on the bad. I don't
Yes.
ever see anything that's focused on the family. And so it's all sensationalized, and so that's where people go with it and that's what they run with, and that's sad to me.
And Char, I think you're a lot like me where you can't set the empathy aside. You can't
Mm-mm.
you can't go into a place like that knowing what's happened and want to bring anything worse in there because of the suffering. I mean, they obviously suffered, and I think they still do. And I just can't. I can't do it. And I see that in you too. You just can't. So
No, you can't. I mean, there's just no way. And as a mom, what's the worst thing possible, right? I mean, that's like a mother's worst nightmare right there. And so how do I go in there as a mom and not feel that?
Jeremy raises a point that I was going to bring up about the Ghost Adventures episode, which really piqued my interest in it back, 10, 12 years ago. That there's been a family that had lived there who had been traumatized before it ever became, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but in my opinion, I really think that probably what that place has become, in my opinion, again, is strictly from the people who've been in there. This place is not watched when people are in there. They
No.
don't, no one who owns the place knows what's happening while there's groups in there. And Martha, if I'm not mistaken, who owns the place now, she doesn't even believe in the paranormal.
she's a funny lady.
Yeah, I mean, I
She's a
talked to
hoot.
her. I talked to her for our stuff, and she's a great person, but she doesn't believe in
No.
in this.
What did she
Mm-mm.
say? She said, "Are you in a paranormal team?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, you and like 10,000 other people." What?
So true, right?
I
Yeah.
was just like, okay.
However, she does remember me when I bring up who I am. She's like, "Oh, you're the one with the storm." And so
How not
so
or not to, right?
well, maybe good for this, but because of that storm, they were able to get new windows, a roof, and fix the attic. So,
And I know that the bottom line is what Martha likes. Not
right.
saying that in a negative way. It's just true. Pamela brings up the only show I saw in this location, The Kindred Spirit, with Amy Bruni and Adam Barry. I would suggest two others, and you all can let me know if you think of others. Destination Fear, where they bring up the Malvern Manor connection, as well as the Dead Files one, which is also pretty interesting also.
And then Paranormal Lockdown too, with
I haven't seen that one.
Nick and
Sheena and Nick.
Katrina at Malvern. They bring Johnny in to Malvern to test the theory that there's a connection too. So that's kind of interesting just to see the crossover part. Um, yeah, well, her husband Darwin was really, this was his thing,
Yeah.
and She really relies on Johnny a lot to do a lot, I believe. I don't know how much that is where it's at now because I haven't been there for a couple years, obviously. But yeah, she's never had an experience. She said
No.
I don't think she really goes in the house very much either, but I don't
No.
think she's ever had an experience.
It's funny because you know how when you walk in and they have the stove and there's the real old iron, the very heavy iron. Apparently, she had that thrown at her one time, and she'll still say she doesn't believe.
Martha had that thrown at her?
That's what I've heard.
Oh.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
from she had that one other tour guide who was supposedly went
Oh.
in with her, and it got thrown at her, and she was just like, "Oh, whatever, it just fell off." And the thing probably weighs like 40 pounds or
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's heavy. I'm like, there's no way it just fell off the stove.
Well, and when I was there years ago, the person who did the tours, it wasn't Johnny, it was a woman, and I have it all on video. She didn't want to be in video, so I had the camera towards the floor. I obviously, if someone doesn't want to be on, I'm not going to ruin that. But the thing is that you could tell she was frightened. She didn't want to go upstairs. Sometimes she said, sometimes if she needed to clean the house by herself, if she saw someone walking down the street, she'd be like, "Hey, can you come in? You want to see the house? Can you mind staying in here while I clean the place?" You know, I mean, that says something right there. Let's see here. This is interesting. When it comes to especially Villisca, Nancy asked, I'll have to watch from the beginning. Please do. A general question I have is, do you ever help the spirits cross over? Is there a rule against helping spirits cross over? Let's talk about Villisca in particular.
Okay, well, first of all, hi Nancy. I've known her since 7th grade. So, so yes, I do cross spirits over, and I know Greg has as well. And it's tricky when you go to places like this because sometimes they have rules about crossing spirits over, so you're not allowed to do that. So that I mean, if you're signing a waiver and a contract with somebody when you walk in, you kind of have to follow the rules, which can be really hard to do when somebody really wants help. So I kind of take it as it goes when it comes to those things. But generally, yes, if there is somebody that needs to cross over, definitely I will help them. You're muted. Okay, I'm running the show now, so.
Can you hear me okay now?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. It's going to sound funny for a minute, but I just kind of did it a backwards way. Because I am a loan occasion, and my waivers, I put in there that people can't cross people over.
Yeah.
That's your business. So
Right,
it kind of becomes a weird thing.
Right. And I'll respect that if somebody, if that's a thing. I mean, I'm not gonna I'll respect if I'm signing the paper, I'm signing that I agree to this. So it is hard. But if that spirit comes to my house and they want help, that's a whole nother story. I mean, and that's happened once or twice.
I think I might still be muted. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not really sure how that all worked, but okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been muted.
It did. It muted me, but I figured it out. Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, if something comes to your house or whatever, like, that's none of my business anymore. Do what you got to do. But the problem with that is that, and part of the reason why we put that in the waiver is because we don't want people coming in there just doing whatever. I mean, some people don't know what they're doing, and they walk in and they do whatever they want to do, and they make things worse.
Yeah.
Or they bring in things they shouldn't.
But-
or, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. We just don't trust people to walk in and just do whatever.
Right. But
Right.
at the same time, I think that you're getting people who aren't going to listen anyway. They're going to try to cross over. And, I mean, when I was on my investigation at Villisca, the people I was with, not myself, they crossed over the spirits. They felt like that they crossed over the entire family. And I looked at them and I said, you got to be kidding me, right? The fact of the matter is that you think after hundreds of people being in this place that you were the ones that crossed over the family? No, you weren't.
Well, here's the other thing too is like I can't cross over anybody that either doesn't know that they need to be crossed over, doesn't want to be crossed over. And it doesn't always mean that everybody that's a ghost or that's haunting somewhere needs to be crossed over. Sometimes they're spirits and they've already crossed over and they're coming back to visit. So you can't, yeah, and you can't cross over residual. So not everything can be crossed over, and it's very rare that happens. I mean, it happens, but it's not like every single person, every spirit you run into, every place you go wants to be crossed over. That's not how it works.
No, absolutely not. And it's just, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not as clear cut as people would like to think, and we all wish it
Right.
would be. I mean, but that's just how it is. And
Right.
Christy, those reasons why they don't do that makes sense. And I guess, to be very honest, I've never really considered that before, because part of me is just like, well, to me it feels like trapping somebody at a location. And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit, just like greedy in a sense, because I'm afraid that people want to keep spirits in a location only because they only because that they want to make sure that their stars are still in the location. That's the thing I've always been kind of worried about. But I mean, I get where you're coming from, and you're absolutely right, because a lot of people, for better or for worse, people go to locations. They do. I do believe a lot of them try to do their best, but they don't know the first thing sometimes of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm going to tell you right now, and I know Stephanie does the same thing at the villa.
Yep.
When we, before I would let a group in or whatever, I would go in there and be like, look, guys, this is how we pay the bills. Help me out. And Stephanie will do the same thing. Hey, you know what? This place costs money. It's your house too. Help me out. Let's keep the place going. That's the thing. People don't really understand how much it costs to own a location. Nobody's actually pocketing a whole bunch of money at the end of the day. You even think about like Waverly Hills. Trust me, they're not pocketing much. It seems expensive, but those buildings, the older they are, the harder they are to maintain, and the last thing we want to see is them go down. And I don't really think the spirits that stay there don't want them to go down either. So, you get a relationship with them that's completely different than just being an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, like even the family at Villisca, I mean, that's their home. Maybe they don't want to go. That's their home.
Yeah.
Despite what might else be happening in their reality at the moment, that's their home.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, Greg's told me too, like, even if they've crossed over, maybe they want to just come back and be in their home together. And what
Right.
right does anybody have to try to ruin that?
Right. Exactly.
And another thing that a theory that we've all talked about, I think all three of us have talked about, is that there could be layers within the house of of spirits. So maybe not all the children are necessarily aware of any of the darker stuff that other people have brought in anyway. That they're able to exist on a different level than the actual, all the other stuff. I've seen clips of someone in a spirit box, like, who are you? And they say, I am Legion, stuff like that. That stuff that might be on a completely different level, if it's even true at all.
As
Right.
Stephanie just commented, yep, no spirits, no mortgage.
Right. But I mean, I prefer, maybe I'm just putting this in my own head, I prefer to think that they don't want to cross over, opposed to us holding spirits because we want to make money. You know what I mean?
I'm just,
But I mean,
kind of a joke.
I get it, but at the same time, it's like, well, I don't want to. I want to, I don't want to go somewhere where we're purposely don't want to cross spirits because it's for financial gain. Because to me, that's
Well, and that was the point that I'm making. Nobody's nobody's lining their pockets off of any of this.
Well, no, I mean that's paranormal. I mean, there's 1% of paranormal investigators that are making any money at all. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, very few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to even do. So I mean, it comes under a lot of scrutiny anyway. So
There's a well-known paranormal dude that's on television, and I talked to him, and he's just like, I just joked him, I'm like, you're living, you're having you're having a great life now. He's like, dude, I work for Amazon. I pack trucks, and he's on TV. I mean, it's just the reality of what this is. For those of you who think that there's a living to be made out of it, you can have something, but it's not going to be what you expect to be. Not everyone's opening a haunted museum,
Right. I mean, this is a passion. You do it for a reason, and I would like to hope that most people do it for the right reasons, that they want to help,
Well, see, and I think we're making I guess not us, but it's the misconception too, again, that if you pass them over, they don't come back.
Right. And that's not,
Right.
as we said, that's not the case. And I mean, Shar, in your experience, do you think that do we know that the kids haven't been crossed over?
Gosh, I don't know. I would have to say the last couple times I've been there, the energy was weird again, so it was hard to really focus.
Sure.
So I'm really kind of looking forward to going back this year and to really kind of look at it a little bit differently and with new perspective and kind of entertain some of those ideas of, are they here? Are they not here? Where are they? What's happening? And, have a whole new fresh way of investigating, new questions to ask them and see what's happening.
Now Jeremy had asked, and I don't know if you know, I don't know. Are there any objects still in the house from that original murder?
I don't quote me 100% on this, but I believe no. I feel as if because it had been changed owners, people had lived in it, they had done their own thing to it. But when Darwin took it over, he kind of stripped it back and he collected antiques. And so he kind of made it look as if it would then, as close as he could. I don't even know if he had pictures to go by, if he knew what would look like or anything, but he tried to make it look as old-fashioned as possible. I mean, to the point that there's no electricity, there's no plumbing, there's no nothing. So, I mean, I think he did a good job, but I don't know that it's 100% accurate. No.
I could have swore there was a couple pieces of furniture in there that did belong to them. But that's what I remember. Again, I could be wrong too.
I don't know. Oh,
I want to find out.
I think the family Bible did.
The Bible.
Bible. So there may be a few things.
Yeah, I feel like I think there's the piano, I think was theirs. Maybe two.
Know.
That's a good question.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
I'm gonna ask Johnny on Saturday.
That is interesting. The piano does sound familiar, actually. And yeah, I mean, and that's a big thing too that we didn't really talk about that you brought up, Shar, is that there is no electricity in the house. The only electricity on the grounds that's connected to Villisca is the back barn.
Yep, and then the extension cord that goes into the house.
Yep, because that was meant to be the recluse of leaving the house and taking breaks and whatever else.
Right.
And Jeremy brings up a good point too. If you got antiques and old objects, could be possible that he may have brought something into the house that's part of that too, for all we know.
Absolutely. I know there's a few family photos in there too.
Yeah, very much so. It's so interesting.
There is a few things, yeah.
Anything else that we should know about this particular night that we've been talking about for the last couple hours?
Not really. I mean, I guess we made it. So I mean, it took us a long time to get over that. I mean, we literally thought, I don't think we can do this. Like, we're done. We're done. This is it. And actually, most of the team worked together. And so we would go to lunch together and we would just sit and stare at each other for weeks. Like, we didn't talk about it. It took us a long time to get to the evidence review and to even look at anything. And some people left the team shortly after that. And it was life-changing. I mean, I don't think you could ask any of us if you ever got over it. I don't think any of us ever did. And it's one of those things that'll stick with you for the rest of your life. Now it's like, I think some people at different varies are okay. Maybe they didn't get affected quite as much, but it's something definitely that will be remembered for sure. And it's like, I use it on my daughter all the time when she says she's like not confident about doing something, like, you made it through the axe house. You can do anything.
And Pamela asked, has anyone on the team had some therapy or PTSD because of this? I know that Jenny had said in the comments PTSD, and I don't think she's kidding about it.
Mm-mm. No, I definitely think there's definitely some PTSD. Whether anybody sought out therapy, I honestly don't know 100%. I don't know if I went to go get therapy, how would I even explain this? I mean, I might get locked up, maybe, I don't know, but I mean, obviously I go back, even though it still unnerves me a little bit. But like I said, there's just that empathy, that calling, that I have to go back and connect with them and check on them. And I don't know, every time I go, something happens and some random person will come up to you and said they have a message and they tell me something about it. And it's like, it just keeps coming back. And I mean, even recently I've had somebody tell me something just out of the blue about the house. And I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
obviously I have a purpose for going. I don't know exactly what that is yet.
So you've been there 10 times. How much of percentage wise, how much of the recordings and stuff have you gone through?
Maybe slightly under half.
Because of
Well,
what it is.
yeah, and there was a few times that I went where it was really intense and I was really unnerved, and I just can't listen to it because it brings me back to that moment again. So there was a few times where maybe it wasn't quite as intense, and I was okay to listen to it. But there's a few times where I'm like, it just, nope, I can't do it. And I pretty much will always hear my name by that same man in the attic
Hmm.
at some point. And I think it's the fear of hearing that name again. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get to it someday. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
Wow. Christy, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I think that's it's just a pretty crazy story. I certainly hope people go back and watch the whole thing from the beginning. So
It's pretty incredible. Shar, thank you so very much for sharing
Yeah.
this with us. And I hope in some way that this helps, be able to share out and know, seeing that people who have been watching are just like, holy cow, oh my God, to be able to kind of empathize with you with what it was like.
Yeah. And thanks for asking me. And I obviously didn't do it for that purpose. And it does make me feel a little bit better going, okay, I'm not over dramatizing this. And it was really intense and it was really scary. And, it didn't deter me. I mean, it might have stalled me for a little while, but it didn't deter me. And I don't know. I guess we'll find out what happens in October.
Absolutely. Shar, please stick around, but thank you very
Mhm.
much. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. So this is going to end our first installment of Paranormal Reveal. Christy, what do you think?
I think it was a lot of fun. And I hope, I know that'll be tough to top, but I'm sure there are people out there who have a story they want to tell and an investigation they would love to put out there. So we're hoping that this will encourage some people to come forward.
Absolutely. So for those of you who would like to share a location and one investigation, one night, you can, and we talk about sharing some evidence, sharing some recordings, video. As you could see, we can show all of it. Get in touch with either Christy or myself. We do this show once a month. We're not doing it every week. That would be way too much, but we're doing it once a month and we want this to be good. So if you feel like that this is something that you would like to take part with us in, you saw how it went tonight, please send either Christy or I a note and we can talk about getting you on and having a conversation and sharing your experiences, which this is what it's all about. So with that being said, we're going to call it a night. We're going to be back sometime next month. We're on Things Networks. Make sure that you like their Free Spirited Network, MN Ghost Box, Buried Alive, all these wonderful locations, including my personal profile page, Christy's personal profile page. Please definitely reach out to us. Let us know if there's anything you want to share. We could talk about whether or not you want to be on the show or not. Carol, thank you very much. This is our first time. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. And this is our
time for all of us.
It really is. And Greg, of course, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Bonnie, thank you very much. Everybody, we really want to thank you for joining us. We will let everyone know when the next installment is going to happen and who we're going to be talking to. But please reach out to us if you feel like that you can add something to this and you want to share your story. Christy, thank you very much.
Of course. And thank you to everybody watching. So feel free to follow me too.
Absolutely. Follow Christy, follow myself, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone, and good night.